voice.
Oh my gosh, she sings too.
Well, when you went to broadcasting school, they warn you, warm up your voice before you start.
Okay, so, all right, everybody, welcome to another Wednesday episode of Crypto with English. So we're flipping the script a little bit today. So I'm going to add this preamble into the episode, and then I will introduce today's co-host and special guest. So something I've noticed, this is anecdotal, but I think many will agree with me, but I think when it comes to the topic of Web3, blockchain, or anything decentralized, there's a lot of discussion when it comes to, NFTs and as far as art and entertainment, blockchain as far as creating, dApps and other applications. But there isn't really much of a talk on, sex tech. So I think if this was any other region of the world, I think there would be more visibility, more discussion, and more attention to it. And I'll even say this. I think even if you look at the coastal areas of the U.S., whether you're thinking of like New York, whether you're thinking of like, Los Angeles or San Francisco or even South Florida, I think there is still kind of this knee-jerk, I don't know if it's this pearl-clutching reaction if you mention this topic that is still considered taboo, even in 2022. So, and by the way, a lot of the, cyberpunk and sci-fi movies very much show the opposite, at least by this year. So we're going to get into the weeds, so to say, about what is sex tech, where progress has been made, what are the problems, what are the solutions, and what is available out there. So I'd like to warmly introduce today Bobbi Bidochka. She's the author of Sexual Intelligence in Business. She's also the founder of Imagine Ideation. And today we have a very, very special guest, Heather C. Montgomery. She's the founder and CEO of doesPleazeMe, the affinity portal for pleasure and sexual awareness. So we are getting into some novel waters here because, not to say I'm the only one, but I don't really see this dialogue anywhere else. So why not first have it here? So thank you, Bobbi, for co-hosting today. And thank you, Heather, for being a guest on today's episode. So listen, I'll give you the mic, Bobbi. Please, expand upon yourself, and then Heather, and then we'll get right into it.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Adam, and great to have you here together, Heather.
Yeah.
So I guess in our world, sex tech is quite prominent. I'm surrounded by it, but I guess because I'm in it. So it's really interesting to to hear from people who really are like, this, I'm not exposed to this at all, which is interesting because of, you really are actually. If you are familiar with OnlyFans, you're familiar with Pornhub, then you are familiar with sex tech. So it's any time that sex intersects with technology, which almost all of it does, short of lube. And everything now is.
That's some technology I really appreciate.
We're starting off strong here. I love it.
But if you want to buy lube online, you have,
right.
there's always, it's all within the technology. But there's been a lot of advancements over the last, I'd say, like really 5 years, major advancements as far as a lot of teledildonics, which is sex toys that have some type of technical aspect to it. So, there's sex toys that move and are robotic in nature. And then there's ones that have actually a component where you have an app and somebody else has a portion of that sex toy. And so from a distance, you can, press buttons and buzz things and vibrate things and do all sorts of things, all the way up to sex robots and VR and the metaverse, like we've spoken about before.
How about if anybody ever used Tinder? That's some sex tech if I ever heard of it.
Right. I would imagine that would be included too, yeah.
Everybody's heard of sex tech if you really want to boil it down, right, Bobbi?
Yeah. Exactly.
So to be fair to say, is this almost like the elephant in the room? Because it seems like, for the past at least 10 years, even just dating apps, these are in the background and even in the foreground of social interactions, in everyday life. But I don't know if it's just something that isn't articulated or expressed, but, one can say our life is comprised, at least, as one of the cornerstones, is sex tech. I guess you could say the need, the physical, the emotional, psychological stimulation, and you could say need for other people.
Yeah, totally. And they've said if anything has ever become tech, it was first sex tech. And the reason why is people are motivated by sex. And if you want to get somebody to use a technology, tell them they're going to get laid, right? Like, I mean, like they'll become early adopters. They will look at the technology and go, how can we monitor and mold this and shape this to help us get off? Right. And that's really why everything in tech started at sex tech, just like we've all started from our parents having sex.
Yeah. I wrote an article about this actually for ASN magazine a couple issues ago, where, we have sex to thank for the expansion of the internet.
Totally.
And file sharing. They were the early adopters of file sharing.
And payments.
Right.
And payments online. First payment online was for porn.
Videos, like all of this was very much the impetus of people who are interested in exchanging pictures and videos and information and webs. Like they were the biggest website domain holders for a while, like industry wise. So they are we are the early adopters of, and so you're welcome, society. Yeah. You're welcome.
Yeah. Sex was the number one activity on the internet since inception, or porn was the number one activity until social media, Facebook beat it out, and then Google beat out Facebook. But that's actually, if you look at the history of the internet, the majority of the online activity was sharing pornography, pleasure, if you want to call it that.
Right.
Pleasure for dollars.
Right.
Yeah.
So what was the motivation or inspiration to create PleazeMe? And the reason why I'm also asking too is because I think often people may automatically associate or assume that the founder of PleazeMe would be a man, just because of the way pornography is, just the way you could say men are wired. So, if you're, doing research online, or maybe even if you're at a dinner party, you're going to meet the CEO of PleazeMe. You may have some sort of idea like, okay, it's probably some guy, a little bit older. He, looks like, probably have a certain, almost like profile of what this individual looks like. Yeah. And then instead we have you, Heather. So tell us about that journey and tell us why it is so important, especially being as a woman creating this kind of company, because I would imagine you have a touch and perspective in making something like this, where let's just say maybe guys, we may just have a blind spot, for a lot of things too.
Yeah. Well, thank you for asking that question. And I will say, like most technological or startup companies, I was looking to solve one of my own needs. I felt like there wasn't a lot of privacy and anonymity, but yet I wanted to explore my sexuality. And I was a single mom, 2 kids, twice divorced, businesswoman. So going on Facebook or Instagram and asking questions about sexuality was just too public for me. It didn't feel comfortable and safe. And then as I searched and scoured, the internet with my own Google searches, the places I landed, I felt like I couldn't really ask a question. They were websites. I didn't really know who put the website together. Was this person an expert? What do they know? I didn't know how to compare it to anything. This was my first foray into the sexual exploration and relationship space for me. And so I was like, gosh darn, there has to just be a better way. Not to sound so Pollyanna, but the truth of the matter is I've been in business, I've been in marketing, I've been in technology and in blockchain. And I was just like, women need more security and safety to feel like they can break out of the mold that we've been pegged in for so many years when it comes to sex and sexuality. We're afraid to say, I'm sexually empowered, because then somebody's going to say, slut. Right? Or how dare you, or you're a mother, or should you really be saying that or doing that? Like there's all these conditional upbringing and or societal norms and or non-norms, or that people don't talk about. What do they tell you when you're a kid? 3 things you don't talk about in polite company. You remember what they are?
Politics, right. What is it?
Sex,
and politics, religion, right?
Right? Yeah. Sex, politics, and religion. Good girls don't talk about these things either. right? These are all the types of stimulant, like what stigmas that women face. And to your point about thinking a man would own it, well, that makes perfect sense. Men have had more sexual liberation. Playboy, strip clubs, attaboy, oh, you got another conquest, another notch in your
Sure.
belt. The whole mentality around sex for men is they've done a good job by getting somebody to have sex with them, right? Whereas women are like, are all these other conditions met? Because if not, maybe you shouldn't be having sex, right? Right? Like there's just been a huge
Right.
dynamic, and I wanted to change that for myself and for other women and men, because I feel like that dichotomy doesn't serve us. We have how much sexless marriage, how many divorces, how many unhappy relationships,
Sure.
and so I just felt like the way to change those things in my own life and others is to provide technology that will support our education, discovery, ongoing access to information as our lives change. Menopause. Now, what do I do? Having a baby. Now, is that going to affect my sex life? Oh, I just got a divorce. I got to go back into the dating world. What am I going to do now? I haven't dated in 12 years, kind of a thing. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And two, there's, like you were saying, Adam, people have these ideas about, who should be CEOs and who isn't and all of that.
Right.
But also, there's a lot of men who are looking for information.
Yeah.
I would say the majority of men are not fully comfortable with their sexuality. They're like, I don't know if I'm doing the right things.
Yeah.
I want to learn more. I want to be better, or I don't know how to approach women. Men have their issues too, and they're looking also for a place to get information and to chat with people like in a safe space, right? Because I don't know if you've ever noticed, but depending on the topic of what you're posting, like LinkedIn, if I post something on Instagram, I get quite a bit of traction, but I post the same thing on LinkedIn, I get nothing. And the reason why is because people's likes and comments are openly public to others. And so people don't necessarily want everyone's interested in sex. Like there's a very small percentage of people who are asexual. I mean, they're there, but for the most part, most people want sex, or they want to have better sex, or they want to understand sex. And so we are very, sexual beings in our nature, which is why it's such a contentious issue. It's important, and that's why it's controversial in some ways. But everybody's looking for information and a place to go without like their clients or professional colleagues seeing, what they're doing.
Right.
Privacy. It's called privacy. Remember that little thing we lost a few years back?
Yeah.
Our privacy. Remember that? How about consenting to who sees what and when, right? Like that's a big part of it too, consent. But Bobbi, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I originally thought, oh, I need to build this platform for women. But then I thought, well, if men and women are in a heterosexual relationship and we're not communicating with each other, what good is lifting up one part of the equation and leaving the other behind, right? And even in LGBTQ, learning from each other of different genders and gender preferences is how we can bridge those, what do they call it? I don't even like the word, but the communities that are not being treated equally from the other communities, right? It starts with the D. What's that word, Bobbi? You know what I'm
discrimination, oppression.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of all part of that. A misunderstanding. Let's call it, judgment and misunderstanding of people who are different from us. How do we bridge that gap? By talking to each other, by learning from one another, by realizing we're more similar than we think we are. We're focusing on this one difference, but you know what we both do? We both have sex. Let's focus on that for a minute, right? How can that bring us together as a society instead of us all pretending like we all don't have this thing going on? If we all say, yes, this is a motivator, it's a driver. What is it? Oscar Wilde says, everything in life is about sex except sex. Sex is about power. So what does that tell you?
Oh yeah, I heard that quote. Yeah.
It is the strongest human driver, and I will argue with anybody who will tell me what else matters more, and I will show you why you're wrong. And that sex, love, and relationships. This is driver number one. But Heather, tell people, because Please Me is more than just chatting up with people.
Oh yeah.
A lot more.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to compare us because I don't like to be compared, especially to Facebook, because I'm not really that fond of them for a while now. But from a functionality perspective, it's very much like you have your feed, you follow who you like, the kind of information that you're looking for, thought leaders, brands, entertainers, hot events, sexy travel. We focus on, you know, supporting the relationship after the date, right? When we launch our dating app, it'll be how do we find a better mate since we're mating, somebody more sexually compatible with us before we go on a date, right? And then how do we support that date after the fact? We wanted to be a dating and relationship platform and ecosystem. Also, as a mom, I wanted to make sure that we had adults only on our platform so we can freely talk about this. So we're keeping child sex abuse material off. Nobody should be sharing that. And quite frankly, why would a pedophile want to come to a platform where there's only people 21 and older? Like, you're kind of in the wrong place, and hopefully you get caught doing whatever you're doing elsewhere. But, we designed the platform to be a safe place for all adults to go in and get answers and support their questions on relationships and dating. Imagine if the world had a healthy sexuality, right? Just think about that. Each and every person that you meet out there was gainfully supported in this area of their life and was focused on having positive outcomes. Would the world be a better place or a worse place?
Very, very good point. And, nowadays in the US, and I'd imagine it's the same in Canada and overseas as well, but the increasing rates of suicide, depression, alcoholism, various forms of drug addiction, it's at least a reflection of the lack of human interaction or the human touch in people's lives. So if you can kind of expand upon the benefits of sex for men and women, and as far as kind of what makes a stronger society, actually.
Yeah. Well, I would say number one, let's just think about it from the most basic of places. You wake up in the morning, you have a spouse or a partner next to you. They turn over, they give you a big fat kiss. They tell you, oh my God, you look great. I'm so happy to spend another day with you. Go have a great day, right? You wake up, another situation, your spouse is like, you stink, your breath is bad. Ugh, just please don't touch me. And bitch, moan, moan, moan. And bye, glad to see you go. Our personal well-being is enhanced when we have a supportive emotional connection with our partner, and there's love and not dis-ease between us, right? So from a very basic perspective, the number one benefit of a healthy sex life is a healthy emotional life most of the time. And then there's a physiological benefit, and that is when our feel-good hormones are released through orgasm, it improves our mental state. Literally, depression and anxiety are reduced. And this is clinically proven. I'm not just making stuff up, right? This is years and years of your cardiovascular health is improved, your immune function goes up, your level of sleep or your quality of sleep improves. So there's a ton of statistics about how somebody who is depressed or ill, what their financial impact is on their community, right? They miss days at work, they have more medical and health issues. Like it literally, everything ripples out from that health and well-being standpoint. And we have a series of 15 videos of how we think PleazeMe can socially impact the world by supporting people's healthy relationships. So there are a ton of statistics, but it was staggering to me looking at the cost of these negative impacts on our financial. We all pay for this, by the way, with our taxes, right? Let's be clear. Every dollar that goes out through the government comes in from us, right? So we're both the burden and the savior of our own lives, right? So why should somebody focus on this area of their life? Well, those are two very, tangible things. But how about just your own emotional sense of worth, happiness, bliss, well-being, safety, security? I mean, the list just goes on and on and on. And the reason I know this is because the reason I switched from healthcare for 15 years over to sex tech and sexual wellness was because I saw the triad of health. I put so much time and energy in my physical health and into helping others anti-age and reverse aging. But the one area of my life where I was still struggling, I had a great career, great health, was my relationships, 2 divorces, 2 single momhoods, long years of singledom in between, unorgasmic sexual experiences, almost anorgasmic, maybe 10 orgasms in 10 years. And I was having a lot of sex. These were not sexless marriages. I didn't know my body. I didn't know what I needed. I didn't know how to communicate it. How did that impact my marriage? Maybe if I did, I might still be married to husband number 1. Who knows? You know, but those are the types of things that I think people aren't totally putting the connection together and are afraid to, because society tells them they shouldn't look at this area of their life. Yeah. Right. And I say, boo-hoo, society, be quiet. It's time for us to take control and have some privacy and anonymity and safety and create the life and relationship of your dreams. You're the only one that can.
This narrative of shame and guilt around sex, I mean, it's got to stop, because that's really like you said, the clutching of pearls. This is, you know, there's a cohort of people.
Yeah, it's like this polite society like reaction to it. I think even if you're a man, but especially as a woman, there is this like knee-jerk reaction. I think in most crowds, if you talk about it, it's like, okay, if it's a woman speaking of it, it's like what's the word, like unladylike. And if you're, let's say you're a guy trying to express it, and I think as guys we don't express things as well, it will come off as almost perverted a lot of times.
Yeah, I mean, I talk about it all the time, and everybody loves it. So I really think this is a story that we tell ourselves that isn't true. People love talking about sex. I have never ever. I got asked this once, like, "Oh, Bobbi, what happens, you know, when you tell people what you do?" I'm like, they love it. Everybody loves it. Like, I don't get any, you know, raised eyebrow. And maybe it's just people I hang out with. I don't know, but. Everybody,
you get them telling you all their stories. All of a sudden, they want to start telling you their stories about their sex life, right?
I would imagine, yeah.
Oh yeah. It's like, oh my God, thank God I've met someone who's open to talking about this, and then they're all over it. Oh yeah, people love it. People love it. Yeah. And so, you know, this whole like we're afraid to talk about it. I'm unconvinced about that, because I'm not experiencing that. But so maybe let's shift the conversation towards NFTs. Heather, you told me once about this thing. I'm going to sound really stupid here. And how, you know, NFTs are being used at events.
Yeah, I mean, so there's a ton of different uses for a non-fungible token, but one of the things that we wanted to do and what we've seen be very successful in the market is having the NFT have a utility that can be utilized in real life, right? So a lot of NFTs are art, right? So I don't mean that art isn't real life, but it's digital art. Like you put it in your collection, it's over here. But how can my NFT give me membership or access to things that I can go do or be, right? So that it's more tied to an individual's, I would say, daily or weekly or monthly lifestyle, right? And a lot of these NFT events allow people that already have other types of NFTs to come and be like, oh, and look at all my NFTs. Now I get to be with other people who have NFTs. Now I'm with a community of people that understand what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, why I like it, and we can brag, right? We can brag. Look what I got. Look what I got. I mean, isn't that what it's all about? I've heard that said, bragging rights, right? I own Jack Dorsey's first tweet and I paid $3 million for it, or wherever it was. Do you remember, Adam? What's the ridiculous amount of money somebody paid for the bragging rights of that? Yeah.
About like a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago.
Not long ago. I was just like, wow, I mean, what are they going to pay for my first Please Me tweet? That'll be great. Or, you know, post. Maybe in the future I'll sell that. But I also saw like the rarity model or the only one of something, and then having to find that, you know, something is worth what somebody's willing to pay and what somebody's willing to accept for it, right? That's what something's worth. And so to only have one customer and then possibly one resale customer, I was like, I like the models that are more like, here's our NFT. We're going to allow X amount of you to have one. Let's call it 10,000 for a round number. And because you bought this membership to Please Me's icon events or Please Me's private club, you're now going to be on the inside. And when we take our events into the public when we bring the icons in and the models and the fun, sexy events, you're going to be on the white list, or you're actually already on the A list. Get on our white list so you can get on the A list.
Right.
but you know what I'm saying? Like it is
Yeah.
that bragging, right? Like think of Playboy Club when they sold the key. Remember when they started building the clubs everywhere, and
Oh yeah, especially up here in like New York City, the New York City area, and actually I think probably the tri-state area. Generally speaking. In fact, my grandfather was a member of the Playboy Club for the longest time. Probably I think they started making it in the late 50s, and he was a member until like the mid 70s, and I think in the early 90s they started closing them down. But oh yeah, my grandfather, I mean, had many stories, many pictures, and to be honest, like it wasn't as comedic on the surface. A lot of times this was a lot of business was done over these type of gatherings, so to say. He was an accountant, he had his own practice, and a lot of times when he was getting clients, they would be talking business at the Playboy Club in New York City, and people would kind of let their guard down, they'd relax, and it was really a way for networking in those days, and I don't mean this by any exaggeration. It was actually quite a serious thing. So
I've been in sales for 20 years. Guess the one thing I couldn't do that all of my male colleagues could do with our clients? Take them to the strip club.
Right.
How many people were like, I'm going to take my client to the strip club today. And that was how they closed the damn deal. The other way was on the golf course or at the Playboy Club. I mean, to your point, it's access, right? It's having access and being able to show your client, look, I can give you good and special and cool things. Being my friend, customer, client puts you in the same boat that we have, right?
Yeah, and a little bit about Hugh Hefner, and before I'll give the mic back, but he was literally the first pioneer to create a publication like this, where essentially women could pose partially nude or fully nude, but also he was the first one to actually have women of color models pose nude, partially nude, fully nude in this. So the first Black, first Asian, first Hispanic models were actually coming out of Playboy, and at the time, Hugh Hefner and his brand, they got a lot of flack for that back in the day. But to be honest, like, listen, speaking as men, I think when it comes to beautiful women, I think those arguments disappeared pretty fast, I would imagine. So I don't think it stopped him in any shape or form, and I think in fact it really enriched this space, to be candid.
Well, he was a huge part of not only liberating us sexually, but racially.
Yeah,
I mean, it wasn't just the girls; it was the performers, the Nat King Coles, the singers, the Ella Fitzgeralds. He refused. There were some times people said, "You can't have that person here," and he said, "Get the hell out." And then he started a TV show, brought them all together on the Hefner show. Was one of the earlier shows, but yeah, he was very, very active in
a lot of celebrities were former Playboy bunnies as well. So I mean, I think you have Gloria Steinem, I think from back in the 70s, but you also had like Debbie Harry, for instance, and a few other well-known singers that I think are not obvious picks, but did actually at some point work as a Playboy bunny.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, it's about getting visibility, right? And then doing something with it. And so Playboy gave women visibility that they didn't have before. I mean, now obviously it was naked visibility, but it was more than we were getting anywhere else. I mean, and honestly, and I know that there was a big, when the women's movement came around and feminism, he had a real tough time bridging that gap because they felt like he was objectifying women and he felt like he was giving them opportunities that they didn't have. And a little both were correct, of course. But yeah, I think we've come a long way, and I'm very grateful for what Hugh Hefner and even Larry Flint and others that have been fighting for freedom of speech and expression. That's a huge piece of what Please Me is all about, is having a place where voices can be heard and where we can learn from one another. And if you suppress voices or censor people, then you can't actually learn what's really happening. So we're huge on that too. We agree with Hugh Hefner in many things as it comes to freedom of speech and equality, and creating a world where inclusivity, and consent are key. So
yeah, I mean, anytime anybody does anything kind of new, people end up, resisting. There's always opposition when sort of new concepts come around. So, you know, that's kind of to be expected. But like since the SESA and FOSTA rules came into play in the US, this has really impacted, like they're quite censoring. I mean, they're very censoring, and it is kind of that's why the metaverse is a bit of a wild west right now, because kind of people can do what they feel like doing. Well, people in power anyways, right? So, you know, these regulations came into play, and then, I mean, and in many ways that it's good, because there are teenagers or children on social media. And so, you know, should social media also have, you know, carte blanche? Can anybody post anything? No. But it's ridiculous to this point where
Draconian.
like even for even just a very basic, say, a menopause treatment, these posts get blocked.
Yeah.
You know, things for men like condoms and stuff like that, this stuff never gets blocked.
Yeah.
The female stuff gets blocked twice as much. You know, even if you're just talking about stuff like, you know, trans stories get blocked all the time. You know, we have to be very careful.
Vagina. The vagina gets blocked. I mean, the word. We can say penis,
Right.
but you say vagina, and they just think it's a dirty word. It's terrible.
And in all fairness, you could probably have many infomercials, references, articles to like Cialis and male sexual dysfunction. I don't think any of that gets shadow banned or blocked or anything like that, you know, in all fairness. And I have to say, what's the significance of Playgirl, the publication that came out in the mid-'70s to you? Because even back then, I think despite whatever censorship or you could say taboos existed, women also had a desire for some kind of publication to express, you know, sexual interest, desires, advice, you know, articles and things like that. And all jokes aside, you know, these publications were actually known for actually having very good articles. So in many ways,
I read for the articles. That's what they always say.
Research
says,
like,
Adam,
interviews with like Jesse Ventura, Bill Clinton, like they had big names in them back in the day.
Yeah. No, research shows that women think about sex almost as much as men. Like the numbers are not, the gap is not wide. Women enjoy imagery as much as men, different kinds of imagery, but erotic nonetheless. So, you know, it's a bit of a misnomer that like women aren't interested in sex, because they are. They're just interested in good sex. But also Playgirl when it came out, it didn't sell to women all that much. It actually appealed to the gay community.
Yeah.
So way more gay men purchased Playgirl than women did. It's just, you know, it doesn't say that's not an indicator that women are interested in sex. It's just that particular vehicle for transmitting didn't resonate. You know, other things do. Erotic novels, which by the way are 90% purchased by women and are the biggest best-selling book category by miles. Like,
right.
I believe it.
Major miles. No amount of self-help books and Tony Robbins and all that stuff, it's down here compared to erotic novels. So, you know, an audio porn now, and, you know, women are really picking up on that because there's something very, you know, nice about listening and using your imagination.
Yeah.
And by the way, kind of like going off of that, like, you know, being that this is almost like an elephant in the room, you know, at any major supermarket, I don't think they do this as much anymore, but when you're online, you're about to check out, they have the magazines and they also have those like erotic, you could say, models. And it's like either like some guy like Fabio, you know, big and muscled, looks like a barbarian, has got a sword and has like, you know, a damsel in distress in his arm. And, you know, those novels, they always seem to almost be like nearly empty or mostly empty, like, you know, at the supermarket. Because when I was a little kid, I just remember like checking out with my parents, like, oh, hey, mom, dad, what's that about? Like, what's that up there? And of course they like, would try to, distract me like, oh, hey, Adam, here's some candy or something. But like, it's clearly a big motivator, and it's clearly something that has a wide audience that either expresses or satisfies those curiosities and interests.
Well, when a woman's alone reading a book, she can be as sexual as she wants to be and nobody's judging her. You're in the story, you're listening, you're fantasizing, you're thinking, you're picturing yourself there, maybe adding a few of your own little additions to the thing. But just think about it. It's that I'm not being judged, but I'm able to explore my sexuality, even if it's only in my fantasy, in my mind, right? With the help of this book. So I think that, women would enact their fantasies a lot more if there just wasn't as much judgment externally in the world. And I had an interesting conversation with an elder gentleman. He's married for many years, and he had expressed that through the time of his marriage, he had dated a few other women, and one of them actually admitted to him that she was, an OnlyFans model or an escort, or like, he was just telling me. And then
Right.
she said, and I like BDSM, and she shared a couple things that she liked sexually. And he said, I got to tell you, it freaked me out. And I was like, I'm out of here. And that is a real fear, right? It is somebody going to go, you just told me you're a little too sexual and now I'm out. But the truth is, if that's the case, then so be it. It's probably best. Right. You're not a good match. But there is that, and it's like women should have this certain, don't cross, we want you to be a freak, but we want you to be a lady. And if there's this very, very fine line and nobody really knows where's the step over it, and it might be different with every guy,
Stop the heck out of it. Who cares about that line? Whatever.
Exactly. But I mean, this is what keeps us below a line, right? Is we think there is this line. And how do we, either women go balls to the wall over it, which a lot of them do, or they stay so far below it because they're so fearful of coming near it, is what I would say. And I'd like to get people more like Bobbi says, let's just blow up the line.
Yeah.
Do what you want. I mean, if you want to be, very quiet about, like, nobody's going to judge you on that either, as long as you're making the decision for yourself because it's what you want, not because society pressures you, towards it. But in the name of reducing the elephant in the room, there's been some pretty big normalization activities going on. Like Sephora now is selling sex toy. Target, and who it was just recently somebody got, like, Gwyneth Paltrow and who was it? They got their femtech company
$53.8 million. It was a menopause technology platform for telemedicine, but Gwyneth Paltrow and Drew Barrymore and Cameron Diaz were all investors in it.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. Yeah, and there was another big announcement not too long ago. Gosh, I should have researched this, but it just spontaneous thought. So the point is that
Dame Products raised some money, and they were the ones that got into Sephora. And then there was another line of supplements that support sexual health and wellness, maybe Mod or something close like that got a really serious Series A, like raised over 10 million. Yeah.
It's pretty significant to say the least.
And Bobbi, did you know that Playgirl just republished? I don't know if Adam or Bobbi know. And
I didn't know.
There's a woman on the cover, which I thought was very interesting.
Oh, wow.
And so they didn't want to fall into this. The article I read very briefly said they didn't want to fall into the same gay magazine genre. So they're trying, their focus is to be a magazine that appeals to women and focuses on sexuality at the same time.
Well, have another go. Why not?
Yeah, do a quick Google search. We get off the call. And it was very recent in like the last 3 or 4 weeks was their first issue. Yeah.
And maybe it's expressed differently, but you made a very interesting, I guess you could say analysis with, you could say, erotic novels or those romance novels, typically speaking. But I think even with guys, almost to an extent, whether it's, I would say, even like action movies or comic books, what is really the main driving force of the main character? You know, this could be Batman, this could be Superman, this could be any major type of superhero you think of. It mostly almost always involves saving the love interest in many ways. So whether that main character is trying to become stronger mentally and physically, whether that main character is trying to either defeat a dragon or some sort of major supervillain, what is at the end of that journey? It is really that woman. You know, more often than not, I guess, you know, you could even say, even if you take something as maybe as benign as, let's say, the old Sleeping Beauty, where I think the prince has to fight that dragon at the end. As a guy, would he really be fighting a dragon if there was not a beautiful woman at the end of this? Like, would a guy put his life on the line for, you know, just to simply fight a dragon for the sake of fighting a dragon? I don't think so. I don't think that would be a good sell. That wouldn't make sense to a lot of guys, I don't think. Like, why? Because like,
no, but this is evolutionary biology at work.
Right, exactly.
This is it's baked in, baked into the DNA. Even though you know, I'm not a fan of the whole, you know, Prince Charming, princess, guy saves woman scenarios.
Because even as a kid, I watched it. That makes perfect sense to me in my like 4-year-old mind. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. But like, without that, I'd be like, I mean, it's cool, you know, like sword and shield, you're fighting a dragon, but it's like, well, what comes after that?
Yeah, I think men inherently are problem solvers. They like to solve problems. This is what I've been told and what I've read through the years of, you know, different books about relationships. And my personal experience with most of the men that I've either dated or slept with or married or whatever, they really just wanted me to be happy and have pleasure. They wanted to know I was having orgasms, which is why sometimes I had to fake it because I wasn't brave enough to share the truth. And didn't want them to feel inadequate. But really, it's, you know, if you have a problem, can I solve it? And check out my hook while DJ revolves it. Like, ice, baby, let's go to bed. You know, like Vanilla Ice had a few good ones in his hat. You know, I mean, it's just it's fundamental human nature, right? And women, we do want an alpha male. We don't want to feel like, you know, somebody's going to come along and kill us in our sleep. We want somebody there that can protect us. And if we're honest, we are the weaker species physically, right? So we can mostly admit that our bodies are a little different. Men are usually, you know, strong like bull, but the computer changed that and the Industrial Revolution changed that. That's why women started entering the workforce, because size didn't matter anymore. But we're still women, and we still
not that kind of size.
Yeah, not that kind of size. We still want to feel safe and secure, and I think men want to feel needed, loved, and appreciated, right?
Yeah.
So I think that as we evolve as a society, the more that we can look honestly at our partner's eyes and say, hey, transparently, this is what I need, this is what feels good, this is what I want, you know, we're going to be a happier society. And sometimes we need a little hand holding to get there. We need a little time to heal and, you know, come on a platform here that other people are going through the same thing that we're going through. I think a lot of Please Me is that I'm not weird, I'm not different, I'm not the only one. Other people are experiencing this too. And what did you do? Sometimes I don't want a counselor. I just want a friend who's been through it. And maybe not my best friends, because I might not want them knowing everything about my sex life, right? Or my mom, but just somebody who can say, oh my God, I've been there, and here's how I handled it. I don't know if we broke up, but you know, this is what we did. Community, you know, camaraderie. And
it's a very weird phenomenon where people think that they are alone in their thinking.
Totally.
When in fact you are not. We are more alike than we are different. You know, as human beings. And like I said, it doesn't matter what culture, religion, or country you come from. Love, sex, relationships. This is everybody's like end game. This is the idea. This is the purpose. It's the only reason to be alive. The rest is just means to that end. And so, you know, that's what everybody's ultimately focused on. You don't really want the car. You want the car because what the car gets you is something else.
Sure.
Right. So
Sleeping Beauty.
You want the
Yeah.
dragon. You don't really want to fight the dragon, but it gets you something,
Beauty.
right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. Women wear makeup and do their hair for a reason.
Yeah. I tell people all the time, people look at their entire life for their husband or wife, if that's what they're looking for, and they spend all their time and money to make it happen, right? And then they'll lose half of it just to get out to find something better if that doesn't work out and
Right.
start over from scratch. Like, here, take half my shit. Just let me go so I can actually find somebody that I can be with and love. And then the whole process starts over again. I mean, unless we're entirely sadistic, then, that love and sex and positive relationship must be pretty powerful for our well-being, because otherwise, why go
Right.
through all that pain and pleasure at the same time? I did want to also share, Bobbi mentioned this earlier, and you kind of touched on it. Sex tech is a category that people clutch their pearls, run away. Well, the investment world is absolutely no different, right? So why NFTs? NFTs is a way for people that aren't afraid and that want to be part of that community and that, access that lifestyle to buy in, right? And that buy-in allows us to prepay for parties. It allows us to take more money to make the technology better rather than having to go to a VC who will look you in the eye and say, sorry, but my other investors are not going to want to invest in something that involves sex.
Right.
I've heard that 1,000 times.
Even though the opportunity is huge. The
Huge,
market
billions, billion-dollar opportunity.
Yeah.
And social impact. Huge,
social impact.
So we also started a WeFunder campaign. One of the other things that's really helped
Excellent.
sex tech in the last, so many years, I think it's been like 3 or 4 years since the crowdfunding CF has opened up in the SEC's mind as a viable way to raise capital, right? Before you couldn't bring in investment with anyone who wasn't an accredited investor, which means they have over $1 million in the bank or they make over $350,000 a year. Now the average person can buy stock, right, in a company that they like, in an idea that they believe in a movement that they want to be a part of. And so PleazeMe is utilizing that. Also, it helps us get around the advertising restrictions. I can't advertise PleazeMe, but I can advertise my WeFunder.
I see what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I wanted to know, what does PleazeMe offer that, let's say, other similar platforms don't? Because both of you raised some very good topics. And I think a lot of times when it comes to, let's say, the conversation of sex, it almost seems a little bit, cloistered. You're going to have guys go off with their guy friends, probably not going to get the best advice, probably going to be some jokes and some giggling in between. And let's say, if women go off and have the same conversation with their girlfriends, there may be some blind spots as well. So, talk about maybe kind of how your platform is going to be like a conduit for a lot of this.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think number one, we're starting with that initial analysis. When somebody comes to PleazeMe, we ask them a number of questions about their sex preferences in bed. Not, do you like men? We do ask those questions too, but that's not what gives them a sex sign. We want to know what to show them, right? What information is going to be of interest to them. And if they want to go explore other things, they'll know where they're going before they get there. So I'm not surprised or shocked or seeing anything that I don't want to see. That's the beginning of what we're calling their pleasure map, right? So and they get points for doing different things. So we've kind of gamified the site. We want to make it so that people can get rewarded for working on this area of more than the emotional and the physical, but like game. People love to win, right? We like to know about ourselves. We like to win games, and women, right? If you to your, dragon beauty.
Right. Yeah. It's night fighting the dragon example.
Yeah. And so as they're on the platform, more and more, we're going to be asking them questions that they can choose to answer and earn more points. And each of those questions will get added to their pleasure map, which will then trigger our AI to say, oh, this person just went through a divorce. Maybe they'd like a course about healing after divorce or dating after divorce, and starting to put healthful and positive information in front of the people at the moment that they're in, where they need to be going next, right? Or where they might want to be going next. So having that revolving door of question and answers, just you and this technology itself, your pleasure map, your private, secure, anonymous data that's like your healthcare data. It's based on a number, not your identity. So we can de-identify it. is one of the things I think that makes us really unique. And from a user's perspective, I say it's like their concierge for a better sex life. That's what we want. We designed it to be. Like, you want to know where to go in the area where there's cool, sexy events, log into your PleazeMe. You want to know what you need to do next in order to, get to the next level of your sexual performance, log into PleazeMe. You've got a broken heart and you just want a bellyache about it, log into PleazeMe. You're going, you have some erectile dysfunction, you want some real good resources because you're starting to freak out about what's happening down there, go to PleazeMe. Like, it's an aggregator, and it's a place where all of the people who are in this industry who are being censored everywhere else, who can't be their brand, who can't share their important and impactful wares, services, or products with the world. Now they all have a place to thrive, right? We get to find them, they get to find us. Everybody's, happy because we're now finding the right resources, and those companies can stay in business. The worst thing is when you find a great product or service and then they close their doors. Now, what am I going to do? I just lost my favorite, this, that, or the other. And why did they lose their doors? Because they couldn't get enough customers through the door, right? And we have a lot of people in this industry right now who are right there between, are we going to make it, or are we going to have to shut our doors? Because the censorship is so bad and the marketing so difficult and the business restrictions so vast, whether it's banking or insurance or, even what are those, MailChimp, even email servers. They're
right. Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy. So yes, we have a moral responsibility to make sure that children are safe. We have an ethical responsibility to make sure that people aren't being non-consensually violated, right? Whether that be through rape videos or revenge porn or anything that nobody is consenting to. And above and beyond that, as consenting adults, it's none of your business what people are doing in bed. Let them have their fun and their pleasure. Like, that's where the line is. Like, we need as adults that place. So that's what we hope to help create.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I was going to ask too, so when you've, assembled, a lot of these, I guess you could say, functions of this, when you've, I guess when a pleasure map is generated and you could say a sex sign is ascertained, are there any type of trends between, men versus women that you've noticed that may not be so obvious to a lot of people as well? Because I think at least if they're accessing your website, they're interacting with your platform, I think most of the time people are going to be honest. They feel that it's anonymous. They feel that, okay, they're not shouting this out loud in public. They're sharing this data with a website that is anonymous. Are there any interesting things you've noticed between the sexes that maybe, let's say, men or women may not generally know off the top of their head?
Yeah, one of the things that recently surprised, we're a huge data company, de-identified, but data. One of the huge things that surprised me recently was that I thought much more of the population was interested in monogamy, at least from a female perspective. Let's call that a female heterosexual perspective. And we were very surprised to see one of the questions we ask is, what is your typical relationship style? Is it monogamy? Is it monogamish? Is it swinger, or is it poly? And you laugh, but monogamish is actually a term. It means, oh, you're going on a vacation, honey. You have a hall pass for one day. As long as I'm not there, don't know, don't tell. Or you can flirt with other women and maybe even kiss them, but no oral sex, no, like, people have different varying degrees of what they consider acceptable interaction with others. And then there's others that are just polyamorous. You can have me as a boyfriend and a lover. You can have him as a boyfriend. You can have as many boyfriends as long as everybody knows about each other and everybody's on the same page. We're not monogamous emotionally or physically, right? We're in an open relationship. Many people would just call that playing the field. Back in the day, if you really wanted to think about it, it's kind of what men have done for a long time. No offense, men, but and us women are like, are you going to now be exclusive with me? So more and more women are wanting to play the field. I'm going to say it that way, or have a more freely available. Hey, we're going to swing. We're going to swap couples. I don't want to have the same, sexual experience for the rest of my life. I'd like to have some variety. And the other thing that really shocked me was it shouldn't shock me. The older people we have people that are 60 to 70 and 70 plus on the platform. We don't have any age restriction other than 21
Right.
up, right? So it's not a huge part of our platform, people. This is not Facebook too, no. but it is a part, right? And so the older people got in that 60 plus and 70 plus, less than half of them, 45% and less, wanted monogamy. That was the highest group of
That's awesome.
non-monogamous
That
people.
also makes sense at the same time too.
Yeah, they're
well,
like,
isn't it funny how that reflects other aspects of our society? You know, we don't work the same job for a lifetime anymore. We move around. And now it's even worse. Even more different gig economy.
Right.
Think about it for your location. Do we live in the same town, in the same house as we always have? No, we keep swapping up stuff.
Yeah,
Very
it's
true.
totally true. And I think that too, when it comes to that, people that are traveling, it's like, I know one of my investors, and he's fine with me saying this. He's got, he's polyamorous. He's got a girlfriend in like 6 different countries, because when he's there, he can't just, one woman can't just give up her whole life to travel around the globe with him. Most women now have kids or career or whatever. So he's just very open and honest. Everybody knows the situation, but yeah, he's got 5 or 6 girlfriends, and they love it.
Love it.
One in every port.
Life. And I wanted to ask too, so we're in 2022, so I think over the past 70 years a lot of taboos have been broken down in many ways, but still when it comes to, let's say, even this very conversation, this is still a taboo, I think, for most audiences in most contexts. And I think in many ways, society's become more secular, society's become more open and tolerant, minus the exceptions. But I think generally speaking, if we were to compare 2022 to 1957, this conversation right now is way more acceptable regardless. So why do you think we're still not at the finish line when it comes to this subject matter? Because I'll even say this as a guy, this is a great conversation, and in fact, I think A, there's a lot to learn from this, but B, I think it's also very cool to have this type of exchange. If I was to put this anecdotally, if this was a discussion with my buddies, this just might be just the usual banter, maybe some giggling, some jokes and stuff like that. I don't know if necessarily a lot of wisdom or, insight's going to be gained from it, might make for a buddy comedy or might make for, just the pastime though. But something like this or more of these type of conversations, I think probably brings the sexes together, so to say.
But if you could compare it to crypto, so, what crypto is going through as far as a trajectory, it's a technology, it's relatively new.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, at first it was like dismissed, and then, cohorts started to take it more seriously. And now, like, I'm hearing ads on the radio, warnings to people, like, don't jump into crypto, it could be dangerous, right? And so there's always now, the financial system that we have is, it's a structure that's been around for a while. It's hard to break that down. But you can see what's going on with crypto and NFTs. Like these are new things. Blockchain, like these are all sort of new ideas that at first were a bit resisted, and then they go through this, like, people jump on, and then the competitors, like the financial institutions now, I mean, they're really trying to figure out how do we either get in on this or fight it.
Very true.
And so, it's kind of the same, you could really map on the same trajectory. And, your people are NFT crypto people, so, they get it.
Yeah.
I would say more men asking women to talk about sex. You guys are more comfortable and making the women feel comfortable. Like, I want to talk about this, and I want you to know you can feel 100% comfortable, and nothing you can say would turn me off or make me like you any less. I want to have an open, honest communication about sex. If a woman has that conversation first, she's already putting herself at jeopardy in the previous domain of what we've grown up hearing and knowing of being too sex forward, right? So how do we elevate? Men have had more sexual power and acceptance for a long time. So I think men need to help bring the women up to that level. Not that we need help and not that we have to have permission, but for women that are afraid, and there's no shame in having some fear because there's real repercussions that this can have in your work and your life. And so just saying, let's talk about it. It's kind of like when you go, hey, let's talk about crypto, to Bobbi's point. Let's talk about NFTs. People are like, what are that? I don't know. That's kind of scary. I don't know much about it. But it's the person that came out and said, let's talk about it, which is why Bobbi with her book and me with my platform and her, the Love and Sex with Robots, we're talking about it so that other women can see other women talking about it with men talking about it. Like the more, and then two more, and then two more, and then two more. What was that commercial? Now I'm showing how old I am, but
I know what you're talking about. It's escaping me right now, but yeah.
It's just the way of the future. I think things are definitely progressing nicely, or they were up until 2018 when FOSTA SESTA came out. And now we're in a draconian 1920s internet situation as it pertains to sex and sexuality. Now we're ready to talk about it, but nobody will let us. That's kind of what I think is happening right now, which is why I feel like it's so important. Platforms like lips.social, which is like Instagram for LGBTQ uncensored. We're not the only platform out there. The Mon app, to Bobbi's point, is an app for like Clubhouse, but for talking about sexuality, right? People can log in and have conversations if they're not worried about their anonymity. And so more and more people are having to go around. And how do you find these apps if people like you, Adam, aren't asking me and Bobbi the question of, oh my God, I'm not seeing that they can't advertise on Facebook. They can't advertise on Instagram. They can't advertise on
how do you know?
They can't. So now people know there's these other apps out there, but without visibility and audio coverage or news coverage, people just don't know that there's resources. And that's what PleaseMe wants to do. Come here, find all the resources. Find all the resources. We're an aggregator and a connector.
Yeah, and when it comes to freedom of speech, it's very interesting where if I wanted to, let's say, find, and by the way, this can be a variety of either, let's say, graphic, offensive, highly violent materials, that would probably have a longer half-life on the internet than, let's say,
like Squid Games.
Like if you looked at like Squid Games, or even like those ISIS videos that were popping up like 5-6 years ago, people were finding those like crazy and then just posting them up. But let's say your platform and what it aims to do. I've heard so many stories of different entrepreneurs doing something similar, and they try to advertise and post it on social media, and they get banned, or they get shadow banned, they get censored almost immediately. And I think that blows my mind, to be very candid with you, because first off, I think circulating ISIS videos is going to make people more anxious, panicked, traumatized even from watching that stuff. But let's say PleaseMe and sexual wellness and understanding these nuances, as far as the female and the male body and intimacy. It seems to me that the establishment has more of a itchy trigger finger to censor something like that, which, by the way, it seems like if you were to look at it
backwards,
it's very backwards. So I would imagine even sex makes society even less violent over time too.
I say let's fuck our way to world peace.
Well, I mean, right. Yeah, exactly.
I say it all the time. I'm like, I'm trying to help the world fuck its way. I was a beauty pageant queen. I stood up there at 18 and said, I want world peace. This is my contribution.
And, like cyberbullying, that stuff doesn't seem to be addressed until after the fact, whether somebody has either been severely damaged as far as their reputation, or in some cases, unfortunately, when people commit suicide. But sexual wellness and open dialogue and open platforms for this, that seems to be, cut off right from the roots. So that kind of blows my mind.
Well, I'll have a secondary question for that. So fear and anxiety, that was the, outcome of watching the ISIS video that's widely circulated, right? Versus security and empowerment over here. Which one does the establishment seem to want us to have?
Right. I would imagine they would like people to watch the things that are most upsetting.
Is it easier to control somebody who's afraid and
scared,
anxious, or empowered? And
good points.
Right?
Yeah, it's not that it's by design.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not saying that's what the establishment wants, but I mean, if we were just to be like, the scientists and say, well, what's happening here? Sometimes you wonder, right? So to the establishment, we want to be happy.
Right.
We don't want to be afraid. Let us have our cake, stop eating the top of the muffin and giving us the bottom. We want the top.
That's a good way of putting it. Yeah. Because everybody knows the top.
Topless. We want top. We don't want to be topless. We want to be topless.
Well,
I mean, we could get into a whole other conversation about patriarchy and control of women's bodies and, all that kind of stuff, which boils down to the same thing, right? There's, I'm not saying I'm not a conspiracy person, but just the evidence is there of control for certain purposes, economics mostly. But in any case, there's a lot of opportunities for investment in investors. So I'm going to take the opportunity to put that out there, including PleaseMe.
Yeah.
And so, any folks out there who've got a little extra money burning in your pocket, why not invest it?
And by the way, maybe it makes life a little bit more exciting. But, I would even say anecdotally, when I was, let's say, in college, younger and dating, some of those women who were very forward and upfront and kind of had that edge, kind of this conversation, I thought it was pretty cool, to be honest, as a guy, so I'm like, oh, wow.
You hear that, ladies? Listen up, ladies.
Yeah, I'm like, wow, she's pretty cool,
Yeah.
And I think if I was to think about it, I think it does show a certain level of confidence, let's say, in that woman who's able to talk about it. Because let's say if, role reversal, if you have a woman, let's say, just walking up to you at a bar or something like that, and she's just like rapid fire, like a sledgehammer, I think a lot of guys don't know how to process that at first. And then once they do, it's like, oh, wow, there's cool. Something very interesting going on here. Let me explore this. And, I think as men, maybe, looking at the scope of human history being the original kind of hunters in a lot of these tribes, maybe that's what it is. This is like, okay, my curiosity's piqued right now. Let's see where this goes.
Yeah, I agree. I think you're making a lot of valid points. And I hope women are listening too, because that fear, living in fear is never a good thing, right? So that fear of judgment, and you can't say the right thing to the wrong person or the wrong thing to the right person. I learned that a long time ago. So stop being afraid of what you're going to sound like or what people are going to think, and just be authentic. If you enjoy your sexuality and you want to talk about it, then by God, just talk about it. If you want to meet somebody and say, hey, I think we're jiving pretty good, but I'm just wondering, are you into kinky stuff? Because I happen to like a little BDSM, and what's the point of us dating if we're going to get 6 weeks or 2 months down the line for me to find out I'm never going to be sexually satisfied with you because you're vanilla and I'm interested in a little BDSM. That's crazy talk. Like, that's divorce waiting to happen. So I think women can understand. I can just speak for myself from who I was 4 years ago before I started this journey of pleasing. And by the way, 5 years of fear. I had this dream 10 years ago. Okay. It came in the middle of the night as a download. And for 5 years, I was afraid. I wasn't smart enough. I wasn't strong enough. What was my family going to think? Do I really want to get into the sex industry? Like, what the hell? I was raised born again Christian in the Midwest. My family's going to think I've lost my ever loving mind, And then finally I was just like, you know what? Fuck fear. I can say that right here.
Yeah.
Fuck fear.
It
won't let me go. It won't let me leave. I want it for my own self. So who I was then and what I spoke to about and even shared about sex and sexuality was way down here, 5 orgasms in 10 years, we'll call it, in intercourse. Now I have an orgasm almost every time I have sex.
All right.
I'm not afraid to talk about sex or even some of my sexual traumas that I had at younger ages. I'm able to now express it without being in that identity. I'm
And even
moving
heal, I
past
would
it.
imagine, too, from
You heal past it. And now the person that comes into my life can enjoy a more intimate and truthful experience sexually with me. And I don't have any problem saying that. And by the way, I get the guys, I'm older and older, and more men, younger and younger, are now hitting on me. And I'm just like, well, what's changed? What's changed is my comfortability with my sexuality. That's what changed. Now men of all age groups want to talk to me. Like it just, do you know what I'm saying?
that's
Like it's just,
awesome.
and
Yeah.
it changes your business life, Bobby. Doesn't it change your business?
It
I mean,
sure does.
women, I mean, like, and I don't mean screwing your way to the top. And if you want to, I mean, by God, do what you want. But what I mean is that confidence when you walk into a
Yeah.
boardroom, that confidence when you're meeting a new client and selling them your services. You know, it's just a night and day thing. And then if they do make a pass at you, you can go, you cheeky little monkey, like step back. We're doing business here. Instead of being like, me too. Oh, no, run away. Like just stand up and say, shut up. You know, it's not appropriate right now. I don't appreciate it. Let's move on. Like,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, I didn't think about it until now, but if you look at the famous protagonist like Wonder Woman, now Wonder Woman has been around since I think the mid 60s, and originally it was Linda Carter in the 70s who played as her, and then you had Gal Gadot now. Gorgeous. And you know, I would bet that it's largely men that buy a lot of Wonder Woman. And why is that? Now, I remember when I was a kid, the reruns of Wonder Woman with Linda Carter would be on. I thought she was beautiful.
Disagree. I bet you there's a larger female crowd for a Wonder Woman than men.
Oh, I don't doubt that, but I bet you a lot of men are fans.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. And then like I look at now with like Gal Gadot, and I'm like, why is this exciting? I think guys like that type of confidence, and I think guys do like surprises. Yeah, absolutely. Like,
I mean, everybody does, right?
Huh?
Everybody does.
Everybody does. But you know, guys like telling stories too. So like, you know, you look at I think the recent iterations of like Wonder Woman. It's like Chris Pine being rescued by like Gal Gadot the whole time. But you know, I'm watching. I'm like, this is fun. Like what is it like being in his shoes right now? That's got to be awesome. You know, like I look at that and I'm like, that's got to be exciting. I have to say.
Do you remember in the beginning of the movie, he gets out of the thing and she's like, so are you about average for your species?
Right, yeah.
She's looking at his penis. He's like, no, I'm a little above average.
I do think
I wish they would have shown his penis. I wanted to see it.
I would imagine that would definitely improve and enlarge, no pun intended, you know, the viewership. Like you probably get a lot more viewers and fans, you know, there. But like, you know, I think there is something I think inherently attractive about that. I have to say. And by the way, even if you take it to the 80s, you can even take it to like Sarah Connor from the Terminator. You can take it to Ellen Ripley from Aliens. You know, I think there is something very organic and natural about that type, you know, to say the very least. So it's hardwired in our DNA. You know, I think even if you look at Conan the Barbarian, and I think both the movies, he had a female co-protagonist, and it was some sort of barbarian woman with a sword or a shield.
He-Man and She-Ra. Are you
He-Man and She-Ra, that's right. Yeah, you know, there is something, I think there is something
Xena,
there.
the warrior princess, wasn't she another
Xena, warrior princess from the 90s. Yeah, in a few episodes, you had like a Hercules and Xena, you know, crossover, and it's like, hey, it made sense in my head. I'll tell you that much.
Why? You know what that is, Adam? I'm going to tell you why. You're experiencing what it would feel like to be a submissive without actually having to be a submissive. Imagining a woman that has more power than you, who can throw you around and say like, and a lot of men, because they make decisions and they're in a dominant role all day long, especially CEOs and founders. When you get into the kink world, they're the ones that want to be subs. They don't want to be a dom in the bedroom. They're a dom all day long. They want to get into the bedroom and let somebody.
So it's like taking a break or taking your foot off the pedal for a little bit.
Yeah. So people liking and watching those types of archetypical women are probably just subliminally like kind of experiencing what it means to be like imagining or fantasizing what it'd be like to be a sub in the dom sub world, in the BDSM world.
Well, that's very interesting.
Yeah, it doesn't mean you want to get beaten. It just means you want somebody to take control, right?
Yeah.
It's not all about, people think it's all about pain. It's about control and relinquishing of control, right? And anticipation and, not knowing what's going to come next and having that thrill ride like a roller coaster.
Sure. Well, I do like roller coasters and I do like having a good time. So I'll leave it at that.
Good for you. Yay.
It's awesome. And as far as the NFT ecosystem with PleaseMe, these NFTs will offer special permissions for the users into the site. Can you talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily into the site that they're getting special permissions, although we could build that in the future. It's more about when we have events, and we have 2 channels that got put on hold with COVID, and that was hot events and sexy travel. We feel like it's one thing to go online. You want to learn all about this sexual journey that you're on and find the right mate. But when it comes right down to it, unless you're masturbating to a porn, right, you're going to want to go into the real world and, practice makes perfect. You got to go out there and do some things, right? So part of that is just putting yourself in an environment around people that are also interested in being in a more sexually charged environment. So you've gone to the clubs where they've got the performers that twirl the fire and they stand on the sticks and they wear the outfits. And, it just gives you more of a carnival type of, in Brazil, if you know about carnival.
Right, yeah, the carnival.
That more of a feeling of like sexual freedom and liberation. And we're out here, we're doing it, right? So some of it is that. There's also a deeper step into that. Some of it's lifestyle. So there's resorts and cruises where people can, nude resorts or swinger/nude resorts, or just places where it's only adults, like Virgin's new cruise line. It's only for adults. Kids can't go on the Virgin cruise out of Miami, right? Because adults want to be able to do adult things without worried about kids being around, right?
Sure.
So it's creating those really fun, cool events with hot DJs and, icons of sexuality without giving too much of our plan away. People that are out there, whether they're huge OnlyFans or Instagram models, or they're just embracing their sexuality as women, maybe even coaches and educators, that are all now coming into this event, usually around other events like South by Southwest or a major football event or another cryptocurrency event. We'll have our little PleaseMe parties. And if you want to travel and go to destinations where people are doing a little bit more with that open relationship style, then you can come to those private events that PleaseMe is going to be having at another level, but not unless you want to, right? Not unless that's what you're into. But yeah, that's really the idea, is to be able to hang out with cool people and go do cool things and get introduced to the hottest and the newest. To Bobbi's point, technology. There's a lot of cool things. Sex dolls. I mean, we had a conference that we attended that Bobbi managed, Sex and Love with Robots, which was incredible. I mean, these speakers and what's coming, into sexuality is quite unique, and why not learn about it? Web 3.0. I mean, you brought that up earlier. I mean, there's a lot going on in VR and AR that has to do with sex and sexuality, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And now that the metaverse is there, and people are buying up huge pieces of space, and what do they want to put there? A club, a brothel, I mean, I'm serious. Like, think about it. What's the one need they know everybody's going to have? Okay, they got to poop and they're going to want to have sex. I'm making a joke because we're in digital world, but it's one of those things that sex sells. And if they're going to be building a community that's virtual, good luck doing it without sex, right? To your point.
Very good
Good
point.
luck doing it, because that's going to bring the adoption. So the other thing we want to do is the gamification will have a tokenization, so that utility token can be used and spent in the realm, a coin of the realm, if you will, in PleaseMe and all of our potential outlets for buying products or attending events. So getting people to understand what a meta wallet is, how to use cryptocurrency for payment, because sex does motivate. They'll figure it out if they, so I feel like we have a really big role to play, not just PleaseMe, but sex tech in the adoption of cryptocurrency as more widespread as a world. And we just want to do our part in that. And so the tokens is a great way to get people motivated enough to start to learn what cryptocurrency is and why they should care.
Wow, it's pretty cool.
Amazing. Adam, I think we're at an hour 20 here.
Oh my
Right.
goodness. Wow,
So,
that
we-
time.
yeah.
Bobbi,
Time
I'll
flies.
leave the ending remarks to you. But listen, Heather, it's been an absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure having you come on to the show and talk about PleazeMe and talk about all these different things that are going on and a lot of these nuances. Because listen, this is how you normalize. This is how you get mass adoption for either these concepts or this technology. You kind of remove the stigma, you demystify these things, and you realize it's really not scary.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I mean, it's just wonderful to have these conversations, Bobbi. You're my Shiro. I'm a big fan, and she's blazed the trail too. If you haven't read her book, Sexual Intelligence, check that out on
Get her name
Amazon.
is on it.
Yeah,
Sure.
it's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah,
So yeah, the
and
book Sexual Intelligence in Business, it's on Amazon. If people want to learn more about how sex comes with you into the professional world and how to navigate now in a post Me Too era. It's a bit of a minefield at the moment. Also, we have the Academic Congress on Love and Sex with Robots. If people want to learn more about the cutting edge of sex tech, the next version, LSR 2022, is November 18th to 20th, and you can visit our website, lovewithrobots.com, to at least sign up to be a subscriber, and then you'll get news about we're developing a new website, so be patient with us, but so that's coming in November. And then what else do we got going on? Yeah, that's I mean, and I'm a huge fan of PleazeMe. I'm full declaration, I'm also an investor, so I'm totally biased, and I think that Heather is the most awesomest CEO on the planet. And so, Heather, how can people get in touch with you and across the platforms for PleazeMe?
Yeah, so thank you, Bobbi. Number one, PleazeMe is spelled with a Z for privacy, so it's PLEAZEME.com, and it's free. And you can be a VIP, and there's a one-time special offer when you sign up. We're going to give Adam a link from me, which is a referral link, so that anybody that uses that link in the show notes, you actually get 3 months of free VIP on me. So, and you'll automatically be following my PleazeMe funnel. Yeah. And the other thing is we're launching a special, a 30-day pleasure challenge, because of the reasons, Adam, that you mentioned earlier about depression and anxiety and really wanting to help uplift the community in the world right now. That once you come on at that VIP level with your free 3 months, we're doing a 30-day pleasure challenge. People are going to get a ton, like $1,000 worth of free educational content through links to different coaches and invites to events. So, we're doing that for the next 1 million members who sign up are getting that 30-day pleasure challenge. We might extend it. And then the other thing is come check out our WeFunder. PleazeMe is of course, PLEAZEME, WeFunder.com/PleazeMe, and invest in your own future of sexuality. This platform is here for you, and we are here for you, and we hope you'll be there with us and for us too. So we welcome more investors there. And we're also launching, this is kind of a sneak peek, it's coming in 2 weeks, a revolutionary new way to buy sex toys and goods through joyful reviews, which is where people can go in and create sex toy reviews that are videos, podcasts, and articles. And they all live inside our sub communities so that they don't get censored on other social media, and people can learn as they buy sex toys. So be on the lookout for joyful reviews. I've done a couple of sex toy reviews on my favorite products that I think are pretty fantastic to have in the tool shed. So hopefully you'll check that out as well, and it'll help elevate your journey for pleasure.
Awesome. Looks like 2022 is going to be very, very exciting, to say the very least.
We're excited.
Heather, thank you so much for coming on, talking about PleazeMe. I'm very much looking forward to all these things you have in store Bobbi, thank you very much for coming on as a co-host today, facilitating the conversation, getting the juices flowing, providing context and solid talking points, to all of this. And for all viewers who are watching this right now. So check out PleazeMe. Make love, not war, right? As they say.
Yeah. Yes.
Save Ukraine, have more sex.
That's right.
Save the planet, have more sex.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks, Adam.
Great. Thank you. Take care. Talk to you both soon.